So dito na tayo sa social structure theories. The first one is the anomy theory, and this was, ang proponent nito is Emil Durkheim. So the writing of French sociologist Emile Durkheim were in sharp contrast to the social Darwinist, individualist, and psychological and biological positivist theories dominant in the late 19th century. The works of Durkheim represented a return to the thinking and orientation of the statistical and ecological theories advocates by Quetelet, Adolf Quetelet, and Gurney, an approach that had been preempted by the popularity of Lombroso and the early biological positivists. Sabi niya ni Durkheim sa kanyang work na entitled The Division of Labor in Society and Suicide. Durkheim insisted on the primacy of groups and social organizations as explanatory factors of human misconduct. Kung saan daw na grupo kasama ang isang tao, kung saang social organization siya, kasama sila yung mga kaibigan niya or other peers, ay magpapaliwanag kung papaano nagkaroon ng o nakakagawa ng misconduct ang isang tao. Okay. He viewed crime as a normal phenomenon on society because groups' reactions to deviant actions assist human groups in defining their moral boundaries. Sa anomy theory, sinasabi, normal ang krimen. Okay? Na para bang paghinga. Ang paghinga para sa tao normal. Ang krimen normal din daw sa isang healthy society. Okay. In his doctoral dissertation, The Rules of Sociological Method, which was completed in 1893, Durkheim defined the sociologist's role as that if a systematic observer of social facts empirically started his hypothesis of group of influences on individual propensity to suicide. In Suicide, yung libro niya, he identified several types which included the altruistic, yung selfless suicide, egoistic, self-centered suicide, and anomic suicide due to anomy or the state of normlessness in society. Pag sinabi nating norm, normal. Ito yung mga bagay o conduct na katanggap-tanggap sa isang society. Kaya pag sinabing anomy, nawawala na ang pagka-normal ng isang society. Kaya nga, normlessness, pagkawala ng pagka-normal. Okay. The latter concept is Durkheim's principal contribution to the field of criminology. Ito. Yun nga, anomy. The term anomy appeared in the English language as early as 1591 and generally referred to disregard for law. Anomy came from the Greek word anomy, which means without norms. Ayun na nga, nawawala yung pagka-normal. Nawawala yung mga bagay na katanggap-tanggap sa isang society. So as used by Durkheim, involves a moral malice, a lack of clear-cut norms with which guide human conduct. It may occur as a pervasive condition because of a failure of individuals to internalize the norms of society. Hindi daw tinanggap ng isang individual kung ano yung norms sa society niya. An inability to adjust to changing norms. May mga bagay na katanggap-tanggap noon na hindi na ngayon. Di ba nga yung mga bata sinasabi sa magulang nila, iba na yung panahon natin ngayon. So even norms change. So if a person fails to adapt to the current norms of society, then that falls under anomy. Okay. The inability to adjust to changing norms or even conflict within the norms themselves. Okay. Social trends in modern urban industrial societies result in changing norms, confusion, and lessened social control over the individual. Individualism increases and new lifestyle emerge, perhaps yielding even greater freedom, but also increasing the possibility for deviant behavior. Okay. The close ties of the individual to the family, village and tradition, what Durkheim calls mechanical solidarity through confining the individual maintained social control. In modern societies, tawag naman dito is organic solidarity, constraints on the individual weaken. In a theme that world influenced many later criminological theories, Durkheim viewed anomie in modern societies as produced by individual aspirations and ambitions and the search for new pleasure and sensations that are beyond achievement even in times of prosperity. This notion of anomie would influence a number of criminological theorists, consisting a theoretical school of thought within mainstream or conventional criminology theories. Constituting a theoretical in late 1930s and continued with Richard Cloward and Lloyd Olin and Albert Cohen in the post-World War II period. Chronologically, preceding these later developments in the anime tradition were the work of the Chicago School of Sociology. Later on, madidiscuss natin yan, yung Chicago School. And another major approach, the social process school of thought. These theories were less concerned with the origin of crime in society and concentrated instead on the social process. Kung ano ang nangyayari within society, learning, socialization, subcultural transmission, by which criminal values were transmitted to individuals by groups with which they were affiliated. Katulad nung na-discuss natin kanina, sa differential association theory, 'di ba? Ang isang tao daw o ang isang bata natututo sa kung sino yung mga close acquaintances niya kapag nakakausap niya ito, mga ganun. Okay. Another theory is the strain theory. So as part of the jointly sponsored American Society of Criminology and Academy of Criminal Justice Sciences, Criminology and Criminal Justice Oral History Project, Robert Merton describe how he developed some of his theories. So it was Robert Merton who was the proponent of the strain theory. Robert Merton. Okay. He was interested in examining what is it about our society and cultural institutions, not just individual characteristics such as feeble-mindedness that cause deviance. So maliban sa feeble-mindedness, ano ba yung mga dahilan kung bakit nagkakaroon ng deviance sa society natin? That's how Robert Merton thought there is dysfunction between the American dream of success and social structure. American dream, yun kasi yung pinaka gusto mong ma-achieve, yung pinaka goal mo, kaya nga siya dream eh. But yung paraan kung paano natin makuha yung ating kanya-kanyang American dream would be different with one of us. Yung iba sa atin may pera, yung iba sa atin may connection ang magulang, yung iba wala. So, kahit na pare-pares tayo ng pangarap, magkakaiba tayo ng paraan sa pag-achieve nito. So, another one is class and ethnic structure which all provided differential access. Merton wanted to look deviance in addition to conformity in society and explain differential rates. Functionalism had concentrated on positive functions of things, and so he wanted to explore their dysfunctions. Robert Merton's theory of anomie first appeared in 1983 in the article entitled Social Structure and Anomie, modifying Durkheim's original concept. Again, yung kay Durkheim, yung differential association theory. Merton viewed anomie as a condition that occurs when discrepancies exist between societal goals and the means achievable for the means available for their achievement. Okay. This discrepancy or strain between aspirations and achievements has resulted in Merton's conception being referred to as strain theory. Ito nga, sabi natin, meron tayong goals. Lahat tayo may goals. Nag-aaral kayo kasi meron kayong goal maabot. But for each one of you, for including me, for which each one of us, even though we have different, even though we have the same goal, the means of achieving it would be different with each of us. Kasi magkakaiba nga tayo ng ah, paraan ng pag-achieve nito. Eh dahil hindi tayo pare-parehas ng paraan ng pag-achieve, yung iba, yung mga, sabihin na natin, wala. Wala silang kakayahan. Doon nagkakaroon nung discrepancy na yon, nung strain. Okay. So, US society is firm in judging people's social worth on the basis of their apparent material success. Di ba? Masasabi mong successful ka na kapag meron ka ng iPhone 13 o 14 fully paid. Di ba? Uh, that's how some people define what success is based on the material things they have. And in preaching that success is available to all who work hard and take advantage of available opportunities. Yun nga daw, basta daw nagtatrabaho ka ng maayos, basta masipag ka, at kapag kinukuha mo yung mga opportunities na meron, ma-achieve mo yung pangarap mo. But, in reality, the opportunities or means of achieving success, yun ngang American dream, are not available to all. Merton states, it is only when a system of cultural values extols, virtually above all else, common symbols of success for the population at large, while its social structure rigorously restricts or completely eliminates access to approved modes of acquiring these symbols for a considerable part of the same population, that antisocial behavior ensues in a considerable scale. Yun yung pagkakataon na nagkakaroon ng criminal behavior or antisocial behavior kapag nagkaroon na ng strain. Kasi nga, di ba, magkakaiba tayo ng paraan ng pagkuha ng ating goals. Eh baka yung iba, ang piliin nilang paraan ay illegal. Yun, doon na nga pumapasok yung criminal behavior, doon sa strain na yun. So sabihin natin lahat tayo naging, kanyari ang pangarap niyo talaga maging teacher sa criminology, o lahat tayo naging teacher sa criminology. Then, maaaring yung iba sa illegal na paraan nila yung nagawa yun. Yung paraan ng pagkuha nila. Yun na nga, dahil sa strain na meron na nai-experience ng iba. Thus, according to Merton's theory of anomie, antisocial behavior or crime is produced by the very values of the society itself in encouraging high material aspirations as a sign of individual stress without adequately providing approved means for all to reach these goals. This discrepancy between goals and means produces various modes of personality adaptation, different combinations of behavior in accepting or rejecting the means and goals, high premium placed on individuals' success without concomitant provision of adequate means for its achievement. Individuals may seek alternate means of accomplishing this goal. And that alternate means, yung iba pang paraan sa pagkuha ng kanilang goal, baka krimen or illegal na paraan. Di nyo sure. Okay, American fiction, the Horatio Alger stories of rags to riches, the media, and other literature constantly pound home the theme of success. Social Darwinism, the theme that the capable or fit will succeed. Ano to? Kung sino lang, survival of the fittest. Yun yun, social Darwinism. Sino lang yung matatag, sila ang magsusurvive. Okay. Social Darwinism and the Protestant work ethic, and the attachment of religious value to work, have been persistent philosophies. These values generally accepted by persons of all social classes. One of the essential premises of this approach is that organization and society are not mutually exclusive, but rather many of the cultural values that have desirable consequences often contain within them or produce undesirable consequences. Then we have modes of personality adaptation. Merton describes 5 possible modes of personality adaptation that represent types of adjustment to societal needs and goals. The conformist, the innovator, the ritualist, the retreatist, and the rebel. All except the conformist are deviant responses. Deviant, ibig sabihin, hindi legal o pagpasaway na paraan. The conformist accepts the goal of success in society and also the societally approved means of achieving this status, such as through hard work, education, deferred gratification, and the like. Acceptance of goals does not indicate that all actually achieve such satisfactory end, but they have faith in the system. So, hindi naman daw porket na-achieve mo na ang goal mo or na-achieve mo na yung paraan ng pagtupad ng goal mo ay satisfied ka rin. But they have faith in the system daw. Okay. The innovator accepts the goal of success but rejects or seeks illegitimate alternatives to the means of achieving these aims. Criminal activities such as inventing could also provide illustration. Yun yung innovator. Kapag ayaw niyang ma-achieve yung kanyang success sa legal na paraan, gusto niya yung illegal. The great imposter, a high school graduate, Demera was disappointed that people had to spend much their lives preparing usually for only one occupation. Forgoing credentials and identities, he launched into careers as a college professor, Trappist monk, penitentiary warden, and surgeon in the Canadian Navy, to mention a few. Next is the ritualist. It is illustrated by the mindless bureaucrat who becomes so caught up in rules and means to an end that he or she tends to forget or fails to place proper significance on the goal. This individual will compulsively persist in going through the motions with little hope of successful achievement of goals. Then we have the retreatist. It represents a rejection of both societally approved means and ends. This adaptation might be illustrated by the advice of Timothy Leary, the prophet of the psychedelic drugs in the 60s, who preached tune in, turn on, and drop out. Chronic alcoholics and drug addicts may eventually reject societal standards of jobs and success and choose the goal of getting high by means of begging, borrowing, or stealing. Kaya nga siya, ang tawag dyan ay retreatist. Sabihin, nagre-retreat na lang siya, sumusuko na lang siya. Kaya, ang paraan na lang niya para makakuha ng pera, manlilimos na lang siya. Or magnanakaw. Then, the rebel rejects both means and goals and seeks to substitute alternative ones that would represent new societal goals as well as new method of achieving them, such as through revolutionary activities aimed at introducing change in the existing order outside normal, societally approved channels. Panoorin nyo na lang tong videos na to on your own time. Okay, dito tayo sa social process theories. So these theories emphasize criminality as a learned, natutunan ng pagkakriminal, or culturally transmitted process na ipasa sa'yo, na ipamana sa'yo ng society, hindi ng magulang mo, ng society. And are presented as an outgrowth of the Chicago School of Sociology In the works of Henry Shaw and David McKay, and Edwin Sutherland, Walter Miller, and David Matza. Okay, the Chicago School. In 1892, the first American academic program in sociology was begun at the University of Chicago, marking the inception of sociology's Chicago School. Names, ano yan? Originally begun by sociologist Albion Small, the school would have a primarily influence on the development of sociology as distinctive American discipline in the 20s and 30s with Robert Park, Ernest Burgess, and Louis Wirth as the primary mentors. This group would develop a comprehensive theoretical system of urban ecology that would generate a remarkable number of urban life studies. Ang Chicago School, ang sinasabi dyan, sa isang community merong mga zones. Isipin nyo na lang madaming bilog yung sa community ninyo from small to bigger. And yung mga bilog na yon, sa base sa mga distance na yon, matutukoy nila kung anong klaseng uh, kriminal ka or kung gaano kalala yung pagiging kriminal mo. Okay? Next is human ecology. Right, Durkheim saw that freedom group constraints often also entail freedom from group supports. Whereas Darwin referred to this as anomy, Park used the notion of individualization due to mobility. Dahil sa para, dahil sa kakayahan natin na lumakad, na magbiyahe, yun nga, meron tayong movement, mobile tayo. Individualization daw yun. Ecology is a field that examines the interrelationship between human organisms and environment. And more specifically, urban ecology, viewing the city as a growing organism. Ang isang syudad daw, lumalaki, nag-improve. Ganun daw ang tingin niya. Heavily employing analogies from plant ecology. Worth, in his theory of urbanism as a way of life, viewed the transition from the rule of the urban way of life as producing social disorganization, marginality, anonymity, anomy, and alienation because of its because of the heterogeneity, freedom, and loneliness of urban life. Malungkot daw ang buhay sa syudad. The Chicago School expressed an anti-urban bias in its analysis and nostalgia for the small Midwestern towns where most of its theories had originated. Using R.E. Park's concept of natural areas as a building block, Chicago School students were enjoined to perform case studies of these areas in order to generate hypotheses as well as it was hoped generalizations. Next is the social disorganization theory by Shaw and McKay. Ironically, Clifford Shaw and Henry McKay are pointed to as members of the Chicago School. Pero gumawa sila ng sarili nilang theory. So Snodgrass indicates that neither Shaw nor McKay received his doctorate because of foreign language requirements, but they work closely with many faculty and students from the university. Hindi daw sila nakagraduate. Hindi daw sila natapos sa kanilang doctoral dahil sa different factors. Ayun, katulad ng foreign language. Sa PhD kasi meron talagang foreign language. Ako noon meron akong Asian at saka yung isa pa. Basta labas ng Asia. Ayun. Snodgrass indicates that neither Sean or McKay received. Okay na. But they work closely with many faculty students from the university. The last contribution of Shaw and McKay's ecological studies in the parties was in the 30s was their basic premise that crime is due more to social disorganization in pathological environments than to the deviant behavior of abnormal individuals. So, in the tradition of the statistical tool of criminal theory, Shaw and McKay made extensive use of map and official statistics to plot the ecological distribution of farms in their social disorganization theory, such as juvenile delinquency. Pag sinabing juvenile, bata, delinquency, pasaway. So, batang pasaway. Batang hindi sumusunod sa batas. Using Burgess's concentric zone theory as a schema, as well as Park's notion of natural areas, they were able to document the ecological impact on human behavior. For instance, one transitional R undergoing invasion or succession was shown to exhibit very high crime rates despite considerable change ethnic makeup. Such areas breed criminogenic influences that predispose occupants to crime and social disorganization. In other researches, Shaw used ethnographic and autobiographical field methods in order to provide case studies of criminals and delinquents. Imposing concentric circles on mapped areas of Chicago on which rates of social disorganization had been plotted, Shaw was able to demonstrate the highest rates of truancy, crime, delinquency, and recidivism in Zone 2. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na meron yung zone, may mga bilog in a city at yung part kung saan ka nakatira, yun, madedetermine ko anong klaseng criminals yung mga nandun. And such rates declined as one moved further out from the teens. Okay. Criminal attitudes and social pathology were viewed as culturally transmitted within the social environment. Try natin panoorin.
This video is the first in a series of 2 on the work of Clifford Shaw and Henry McKay. Shaw and McKay wrote several extremely influential books in the field of criminology. Here I focus on their work Juvenile Delinquency in Urban Areas, originally published in 1942 with the revised edition published in 1969. Before we get started, a quick Google Scholar heat check shows that juvenile delinquency in urban areas regarding the etiology of delinquency can be seen as part of a broader scholarly effort to understand the effects of, and McKay hired as a research assistant in January 1927. The first key aspect being the argument that the characteristics of male juvenile delinquency, and to a lesser extent plots of female juvenile delinquency in adult criminal offenders. Shaw and McKay assessed the patterns of delinquency and crime in the context of Park and Burgess's concentric zone model of urban development. It's important to recognize that Park and Burgess's concentric zone model is not a theory of crime, but rather a model of urban growth. Shaw and McKay used the concentric zone model as a backdrop for their thinking about the distribution of juvenile delinquency and crime. Park and Burgess were part of the Chicago School of Sociology in the early 20th century, and their concentric zone model of urban growth posited that, as a result of competition between users for land, cities tend to expand radially from a central business district in a series of zones with identifiable characteristics. The zones specified in Park and Burgess's concentric zone model include Zone 1, the central business district, where business and industry is located, and Zone 2, the zone in transition. This zone is the least desirable place to live due to mixed land use, old buildings, and proximity to the industry located in the central business district. This area would tend to include buildings that had been used for factories, tenement housing blocks, and high rise dense housing. Zone 3 is the zone of working class homes, largely inhabited by factory workers. Here we have modest living conditions with multifamily dwellings. Zone 4 is the residential zone and has better living conditions and newer developments, including some detached single family homes. In Zone 5, the commuter zone, has still more single family homes, larger houses, and almost exclusively low rise residential development. So we have
Yan. Yan yung tinutukoy natin kanina na concentric zone. Yung nasa pinakaloob, itong zone 1, yung Central Business District, pinakamaliit pero dyan pinaka-compact, dyan pinakamadaming nakatira. Therefore, dyan may pinakamadaming krimen. At dito naman sa zone 5, yung commuter zone, doon ang pinakamababang crime rate. So, mas malayo ka sa isang city, mas sabihin na nating safe ka. Okay? Next is labeling theories. From the term itself, label. Diyan, bibigyan ka ng label. Okay. So, although there were precedents, labeling theory, sometimes called societal reaction perspective, became major criminological approach in the 60s, primarily in the United States. Labeling theorists based their point of view on symbolic interactionism, a school of thought that emphasizes the subjective and interactional nature of human experiences, derived from the writings of George Herbert Mead and Charles Horton Cooley, and expressed there later in the work of Hubert Blumer, Humans Garfinkel, with variations called exchange theory, ethnomethodology, the role theory. The emphasis in symbolic interactions is on analysis of subjective meanings of social interactions as perceived from the standpoint of the actor. Individuals perceive meaning of their activity through the reaction of others. Labeling theory says that individuals are deviant because they have been labeled as deviant, social control agencies, and others. Ikaw, pasaway kang bata ka. Tinawag mong ganun yung bata. Kaya yung bata, okay, pasaway ako. So, kung papaano mag-act ang isang pasaway na bata, ganun na siya mag-act kasi pinangalanan mo na eh, nilabel mo na siya eh. Ikaw, bastos ka. Tapos pinakilala pa, itong batang to, bastos to. Sa lahat ng kakilala, ganun siya pinakikilala. So, paninindiganan niya yung kung ano yung tinatawag sa kanya. Okay, the notion of deviance is not inherent in the act itself, but rather in the reaction. Hindi dahil doon sa kung ano yung ginawa niya, but doon sa reaction, doon sa pagkaka-label sa kanya dahil doon sa ginawa niya. Okay, that is crime is a label, not an act. Diba? Frank Tannenbaum called the process of attaching a label to deviance the dramatization of evil. He viewed this criminalization process as a process of tagging, defining, identifying, segregating, describing, emphasizing, making conscious and self-conscious. It becomes a way of stimulating, suggesting, emphasizing, and evoking the very traits complained of. Pinapakita niya na ganito yung bata kasi nga nilabel na niya. Okay? So along with Edwin Lemmer, Howard Becker, Edwin Skur, and others, Tannenbaum and the labeling theorists attempted to shift criminological inquiry from the deviant act to the machinery of social control and societal reaction. In a sense, this reverses the usual process of analysis. Rather than assuming the criminal behavior causes societal reaction, it posits the societal reaction causes criminal behavior. Kung ano yung naging reaksyon ng tao, kaya naging kriminal. Hindi yung ah, gumawa ng krimen tapos nag-react ang society. Dito hindi, nag-react ang society tapos gumawa ng krimen. Nagets niyo ba? Dahil sa reaction ng society, kaya siya nagpatuloy sa kanyang criminal behavior. For example, ang reaction ng society, hindi na siya tinanggap kasi nakagawa na siya ng isang bagay na hindi tama. Ngayon, yung taong yun, ay pagpapatuloy niya yung paggawa ng hindi tama kasi na-label na siya, kasi hindi na siya tinanggap ng society. Okay. These are the basic assumptions of labeling theory. No act is intrinsically criminal. Criminal definitions reinforced in the interest of the powerful. Kung ano daw ang sinasabi ng mga may kapangyarihan, yun yung magiging definition. A person does not become a criminal by violation of the law, but only by the designation of criminality by authorities. Dahil sinabi ng otoridad, criminal siya. Due to the fact that everyone both conforms and deviates, people should not be dichotomized into criminal and non-criminal categories. The act of getting caught begins the labeling process. Getting caught and decision-making in the criminal justice system are a function of the offender as opposed to offense characteristics. Age, socioeconomic class, and race are the major offender characteristics that establish patterns of differential criminal justice decision-making. Labeling is a process that eventually produces identification with a deviant image and subculture and a resulting rejection of the rejectors. Okay, basta si labeling theory, in short, kapag tinawag mo, kapag binigyan mo ng label ang isang tao, kapag binigyan mo siya ng tag, yun na, paninindiganan na niya kung ano yung nilabel mo sa kanya. Pasaway, magnanakaw. Dahil tinawag mo siyang magnanakaw, tutuloy niya, magnanakaw siya ulit. Ayun.